Digimon is better than Pokemon. Yes, I said that right. Digimon is better than Pokemon. Okay, maybe I'm clickbaiting you guys a little bit. I do want to say that I feel like Pokemon has become a little bit stale with their games in TV. I feel like the television side of Pokemon nowadays are kind of taking the same format and still like slightly changing it. Now, I have not seen any of the new stuff with non-existent Ash. I haven't seen any of like the newer stuff with that, but I hear it's not as good as it used to be. And growing up, Pokemon never really changed too much. It was basically the same format throughout the whole entire thing. Now again, Digimon also is like that. Digimon always has a format that it follows. But with Digimon Beat Break, I just feel like they have brought back what made the original TV show of Digimon really solid and turned it up a notch. Not to mention, in Pokemon games, I feel like not sure what they want to do with the IP. Because I'm at the point that I'm just like, every time a new Pokemon game drops, I get excited for it. I beat the game and then I never play it again. And that's mostly every game. But I just feel like there's nothing there to make me want to play more of it. I get more excited, and this is weird to say, I get more excited to go and play a Pokemon clone than I do a Pokemon game. Now, again, I always do like to give Pokemon a chance because I do like to see what they have to offer. We also have to look at the fact that I don't know too much about Pokemon ZA, but if we look at just the two games, give Pokemon ZA a little bit of credit for trying to do slightly something different, but it still wasn't something that I feel like was big and different. Digimon Time Stranger, they've been building up these building blocks to make the game pretty solid. It started off with obviously Hacker's Memory and Cyber Sleuth, and people love those games. Don't get me wrong, I played Cyber Sleuth and I freaking loved it. I haven't got all the way through Hacker's Memory, and I will say I love the fact that they put the little extra money into the game and gave voice acting in the game, which you don't get in Pokemon. You know, Pokemon is spending tons of money to bring us these half-baked games, and it doesn't have voice acting. It's buggy as hell. Now, don't get me wrong, I will always love Pokemon. It's a soft place in my heart. There's a lot of Pokemon I do love. There's a lot of games that I do love. Ruby and Sapphire was one of my first Pokemon games I played, and I hands down still love it. I still love playing Pokemon. So don't get me wrong, I know that I clickbaited you guys a little bit by saying that Digimon is better than Pokemon. I know I clickbaited you guys a little bit. It is very noticeable when you see Digimon, a brand that kind of died off after, I want to say Tamers. I think Data Squad technically would have been last big TV show in America. I know they were still doing stuff with Digimon in Japan. Over here, we weren't getting much. Now, obviously, if you're a big Digimon fan, you still were keeping up with Digimon, keeping up with the information that was coming out. It wasn't until Time Stranger really came that brought back that flavor, that love of Digimon back. And plus, again, we got a lot of people that were super excited to play the game. Not to mention a lot of people that were die-hard Pokemon fans giving Digimon a chance. And I love that. Like I said, I love the fact I am a big fan of Pokemon and Digimon. I'm not going to sit here and say what one's really better than the other because I do feel Digimon does some stuff right, and I love that it's dark and grittier. I love some of the evolutions. I love that you can take one Digimon and evolve it 7 times. I like that you can de-digivolve them. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like Digimon does right that if you're a big Pokemon fan, it might take you a little bit to get into loving Digimon. But there are stuff that I like that Pokemon does. You know, like, I will give each of them their credit. I will say when it came to Scarlet and Violet, they did kind of try to make a story. I feel like Pokemon stories are they follow a certain formula. You know, you have the bad guys, you have this legendary, there's some form of story that leads you to the legendary, to stopping the bad guys, and then, you know, that's really it. Now, obviously, they have changed it over the years. Some really better than others. Like, obviously, Black and White had a good story, if I remember right. It's been a while since I played it, but I remember that one having a pretty good story. A lot of people like Black and White 2. So I'm not going to sit here and say that some of the stories aren't bad. But I will say Scarlet and Violet's story, I don't remember it much, so that's kind of a bad thing. You know, you want a Pokemon game to last and to be remembered. And when you're like, I don't really remember, but and I streamed it. I literally streamed it with all my fans and I don't remember it. But Time Stranger, now again, I haven't played through all Time Stranger, but from what I have played, I'm into it. Like, I can't put the game down. I love it. The story is good. I feel like you can be fine with having to sit around and read some of the story. So like I just feel like if we're comparing the games that have recently come out, I feel like Time Stranger did a really good job at breaking into the mold wherein people are getting tired of what Pokemon was offering and not really trying something new. And Digimon comes out with like, hey, if you want to play our game, we put a lot of time and energy into it. And they did a great job. And then not to mention the TV side of things. I'm not even going to talk about their TCG stuff because obviously we know Pokemon TCG is in a whole different world right now. Digimon TCG is kind of not well known. It's known, but it's not as well known as Pokemon. So I'm not going to talk about the TCG, but I will talk about the shows that have been coming out. Now, I have not seen a Pokemon show in years, probably since Diamond and Pearl, so maybe I'm going to get flamed in the comments for being like, Brady, you can't talk about this if you have not watched any new Pokemon. But I feel like after you get rid of Ash, there's no incentive to continue watching Pokemon. I just feel once you get rid of Ash, because Ash was from basically the beginning of the show to years after. I don't even know when, was it Sun and Moon? You have to introduce these new characters. And after people begin used to Ash and Ash's friends, it's kind of hard to do that. Where with Digimon, there's never really been one core guy or one core group that has been throughout the series. And they always tried something new. You know, we had Adventures 1 and 2, and 2 had more like Digi Eggs, Digi Armor, and that was a different take. That was pretty cool. And then we had Frontier, which was the kids turning into Digimon. And I will say, Frontier is one of my all-time favorite seasons. I don't think it's like my favorite, but I feel like a lot of people dog on it just because the human turned into Digimon. But I feel like that's what makes Digimon so unique. They were willing to try different stuff. I still think Tamers is my favorite. Beat Break might be my second. I'm going to be honest. We'll talk about Beat Break in a sec. But Tamers is my all-time favorite. Guilmon, hands down, is my favorite Digimon and will probably be my favorite Digimon for the rest of my life. I feel like Digimon were willing to try different stuff. And I feel like Pokemon, they did. You know, they did, but they really stuck around whatever game they were releasing because they would have the original. Obviously, they released the games. Then, you know, when Ruby and Sapphire came out, they came up with the next season, and it revolved around a new cast. Obviously, we had Ash, but, you know, it revolved around all those new Pokemon, and they did that for years. So it's like where Digimon wasn't really tied to a game, they were more willing to build a story around these characters and these Digimon that they wanted. And you could literally play any Digimon game. I've always been a fan of Pokemon, but I kind of, after Diamond and Pearl, they just kind of felt the same thing. Even when Diamond and Pearl were releasing and they were dropping episodes, after a while, you're just like, okay, I get the gist of the show. And you kind of just like, the storyline is really not much there, you know? It's always like, there's something that happens in the episode. Obviously, like, let's say Team Rocket is going to steal Pikachu. It's always like Pikachu's getting stolen or a Pokemon's getting stolen. They stop Team Rocket, and then, you know, they're moving their way up, getting a gym badge so they can become the champion of whatever. You know, it's always like that. But Digimon's a little bit different. You know, they have their own storylines that lead up to the final boss. And I got to say this. Beat Break, the story in Beat Break is phenomenal. I know some people have some probably quarrels with it. There has been some episodes that I've been like, but I freaking have been loving it. We're at the final arc, and I've been glued. Every Sunday, I've been hyped to watch it. I think once I finish this series, I think I'll go back and watch it in the dub, because I kind of want to see what they do with the voice acting and stuff. Now, I have watched some of the stuff. I gotta say, I love my boy Cougarmon's voice. Whoever voiced Cougarmon, you're the G. I will say that. And I will say I really, really love the fact that they kept the for Geckomon. I love that for Geckomon, and I'm glad they kept that in the English dub, that he, after every sentence he says, and I love that. But yeah, so far I've been loving the story of Digimon Beat Break. I feel like that's one thing Digimon does really, really good, is when they make a story, they do really good job at intertwining the little sub-stories into the big story. Recently, and I apologize if you guys haven't seen it, but recently there was a couple episodes where this, like, I'm going to call him a psychopath character enters the scene, and then we see one of the main characters kind of push away his friends, like his family, because he went through and lost his family from this guy beforehand. And so you kind of see that, like, oh no, don't do this. But then it leads to such an awesome, and I mean literally awesome, evolution. It is like one of the coolest things. And it's just like you get so invested in the show. Stuff that I feel like Digimon does right, and there's stuff that I feel like Digimon, it can be kind of like, okay, that's kind of cheesy. Okay, that design's kind of dumb. There's stuff that Digimon does that I'm like, why'd you do it that way? Or to me, like I said, I'm a huge Tamers fan. Digimon Tamers is my all-time favorite show. Like, I feel like they did a great job with that, and I grew up watching the hell out of that one. I grew up watching all the other ones too, but Tamers is my all-time favorite. Beat Break is close. It's like I almost want to say there are times where I want to put it higher than Tamers, and I hate to say that. I feel like they sat down and really built a good story for the people that haven't really seen Digimon or haven't seen Digimon in a while. I feel like it's a great starting point for future Digimon series. I also just want to see more remastered games. I would like to see maybe some of the DS games maybe come to Switch or come to consoles. I would love to see World. I freaking love Digimon World 3, even though there's a lot of back and forth within those games. I just would love to see some of those old Digimon games remastered or at least brought back. I feel like a lot of people know Cyber Sleuth, Hacker's Memory, and even now Time Stranger, and I feel like a lot more people are excited to see what comes out from Digimon, so I definitely feel like we need more games coming out. I feel like Pokemon just in a rough patch right now. I just feel like Game Freak and the Pokemon Company just got so safe because they thought anybody would buy anything they drop. And I just feel like that is leading to some of their games getting worse or not fully polished, because before, Pokemon games were pretty polished, the games were fun, the Pokemon designs were good. And again, I'm not saying that the Pokemon designs aren't bad, the Pokemon games aren't fun. Like, there are some foundations to the games being fun, but they're definitely not as good as they used to be, in my opinion. Obviously, the shows, I haven't really watched them, but that's another thing too, is the fact that I have not watched Digimon in years. And the fact that they brought a new series out, they developed a really good story, they developed a really good cast of characters, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I've been loving it. The fact that I haven't really done that with Pokemon just makes me feel like there's just not much to offer with Pokemon. So yes, do I hate Pokemon? No, I'm sorry for clickbaiting you guys. But I definitely feel like where we're at right now, I feel like there is a chance that Digimon could grow to be a bigger brand. I don't think it will ever beat Pokemon unless they really, really dig into the ground. I still feel like Pokemon does a great job with their TCG. Even with the people scalping new Pokemon drops and people selling them at high prices, I still feel like they have a solid TCG that people like to play. So I will always say I think Pokemon will always have that if their media side fails. I feel like if Digimon keeps improving on the stuff that they're already doing really good at, then I feel like Pokemon will have a really good competitor. Let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Do you guys like Digimon more than Pokemon? Or do you guys like Pokemon more than Digimon?